And I'm sure it was the same, not only just for you, but also for her as well. So how did she cope, and how did it make a difference in the kind of decisions she was making in terms of how she wanted to live her life?
Yeah, so she made my mom the power of attorney for her early on. Graham, as an accountant, knew the importance of having paperwork filed properly. So my mom knew that she'd be the power of attorney since Poppy had been in his accident. She knew what all of her wishes were. We knew the kind of life Graham lived and the kind of life she'd want to live towards the end. She knew my mom wouldn't be selfish in making any choices that would prolong her life just so that we didn't lose her. Um, so it became one of those things where Graham was still trying to be upbeat. She was still trying to make jokes, telling us stories, being with family. Um, but ultimately, she did have to be checked into a hospice here in town. And she was there for 6 days before she ultimately passed. And she was still fighting so hard. And we had this palliative care nurse, Jill, that we were so lucky to have come into everyone's lives, because I was working with hospice and palliative care physicians, and I could tell my family some of the things that I knew. But this woman was the most compassionate, understanding woman, and she was helping my grandma learn that it was okay if she's tired of fighting and if she is ready to go, that it's okay. And my mom and I couldn't thank Jill enough for helping Graham really realize that she doesn't have to keep fighting and stay here for us, that she taught us what we needed to continue on. And if I don't think that if it wasn't for Jill, that Graham would have kind of allowed herself to realize that and make that her own decision. Um, it kind of went downhill very fast because she was only in hospice for a few days. They had her on liquid morphine for her pain. Um, they were doing what they could to keep her comfortable, and we all had a chance to go in and visit. My cousins, everyone was able to come. She met my husband very briefly before she passed, and we had just started dating. So it was nice to have that time with her, but she finally allowed herself to rest.
Wow. So a few things. She was on hospice for a very brief
Yes.
period of time, 6 days. So usually, you know, we try to get patients to be on hospice for a longer period of time, given that, she had been diagnosed, and she had been battling the cancer. So any perspective on that particular aspect of her care?
I think it was her stubbornness. She didn't want to rely on anyone else. She thought she could
Got
do
it.
it all. She was used to being kind of like Wonder Woman. So I think it wasn't until maybe she realized she needed help doing things like going to the washroom, and she was having a hard time just getting a cup of coffee, that she finally was making peace with the fact that she needed some help. Unfortunately, she could have gotten help for much longer and been much more comfortable had we gotten her into hospice earlier.
So I have a series of questions for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
you being in the field, you probably were able to guide her in terms of what her need was and the service that she needed to be on. But I'm assuming there are a lot of people who don't even know that this service exists.
100%. So when we went, my mom and I went with her to her different appointments, and when she went to her last appointment with that last cancer diagnosis, I asked her. I said, are they talking about palliative care? What are they doing to keep you comfortable, to help keep the pain kind of minimized? And my mom and my aunt and my grandma and everybody was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, guys, do you remember? I've been telling you, I've been working with this organization for, at this point, 6-7 years. This is what we do. This is what these doctors and nurses and social workers specialize in. So it was very eye-opening because I had been so close to it for so long, to realize that there are so many people that know nothing about palliative care. And it's still one of those knee-jerk reactions that you hear hospice, you're like, oh, they're not ready to die. And so I had to help them understand that hospice is more than just, giving up. And I was able to have some conversations with Graham about that and help her understand kind of the difference and why she should be asking for it, because she is, she was such an advocate for her own health that she was able to say, no, no, I want this.
Got it. So was it a struggle for her to get on hospice, but the decision was made, everything went smoothly, is what
Yeah,
I
I
heard?
mean, everything went pretty smoothly once she kind of gave in and was like, yeah, okay, let's do this. Um, the hospice here in town, you have to prepay for 7 days at a time. And they actually, after she passed, the estate got a refund for that last day because she didn't even make it that whole week.
Mhm.
So it was kind of bittersweet. And I think the saddest part for my mom and I is the hospice is so close to where we both lived for so long that, we drive past there and we know there are people in there and there's no one visiting them. But Graham's room was always full. Someone was always there with her.
So she was, so I'm glad that, she had people with her during those times that she was going through. It was a rough period. But it seems like hospice was there to help her, make it easier. You mentioned some medications that she was on to help her with her physical discomfort. She was surrounded by her loved ones. So it seems like she was in a facility, she wasn't at home. And the staff there ensured that she was comfortable. And it seems like she was surrounded by people who mattered to her most.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last time that I had seen her, it was very near the end, I think probably within the last 24 hours of her life. And she asked me about the party. And I was like, Graham, what party? And she's like, the party that your mom is planning. And I was like, I don't think mom's planning a party. And she's like, yeah, but I've got the key, but the key is to the horse barn. And it still makes me chuckle because Graham was the most logical person I've ever met in my entire life. So I think about it and I giggle because I'm like, what in the world was she thinking? Like, what was going on in her brain that there's a horse barn, that she's never had access to a horse barn, and why my mom would need a key to plan a party, I don't know. But I never had heard her talk just nonsense before. And it was kind of a silly little thing that I still think about every now and then. Did you like this story? If so, please subscribe to this channel and like and share the video. Want more? Buy the book, Stories from the Edge of Life, available now on Amazon for more stories like this. All proceeds support Palliative Care Network, a nonprofit dedicated to alleviating suffering and improving the quality of life for patients facing end-of-life issues. Consider extending your contribution by donating through the link below. Thank you for your support.